Welcome back, Captains. I'm your host once more, Derek Slide, and today I'd like to talk about captain skills for cruisers in patch 0.5.3. So let's take a look together and maybe look at what's changed and what exactly you can use now to perhaps benefit yourself in a cruiser. And I'm going to go ahead and begin with the American Cruiser line. Now, I'm only up to the Baltimore in this line, but I feel like the experience that I have with the top tier cruisers is sufficient that I can give you the correct advice based on my experiences and opinion on what you want to go for. USN's flavor is completely and totally centered against aircraft. Their shell speed is slow. The damage for AP past tier 6, that is 7, 8, 9, and 10, is quite powerful, and the penetration values are quite high, but the reality is the velocity of your shell, it's not fast. You're not really going to hit your target with any degree of accuracy, or not accuracy, rapidity, so that of course means your accuracy is going to diminish. You're really in a pure support role. So in light of that, I looked at the captain skills, and if this is your first time here checking out the captain skills, that's great, because I'm going to give you a quick overview of all the skills and how they pertain usefulness-wise to cruisers in general. So if we look here, we've got Expert Loader, and what this does is it's a 50% reduction in reload time when your shell type is switched. What this means is if your guns, all of them, are fully loaded and you want to switch to AP or vice versa, HE, it'll cut that time in half. Now the problem with this skill is all your guns need to be loaded for it to take effect. If one gun is not loaded and you switch to your other shell type, it won't activate. So this skill really falls to the wayside. It's pretty useless for any ship you're in. No matter what happens in general, changing your ammo type isn't something that is desperate. Fire whatever load you have, AP or HE, and then switch. Don't switch and not fire and get no damage out there and potentially die having dealt no damage. So Expert Loader, completely useless. Basic firing training. Now, past tier 6, you have 203 millimeter guns, and the rest are all your secondary batteries are going to be under 139 millimeters. And since this skill affects all your secondaries, hence your AA, it's almost a must-have. I mean, unless you're building some sort of I can't see how else you'd build your American cruiser. I mean, it's basically an AA boat with the option of fighting with guns, setting fires to things, I guess, APing enemy cruisers if you're lucky and they don't turn away from your shells. So basic firing training is a must here. If you look here for Expert Marksman, we have to take this because USN cruisers don't get torpedoes. Even if they did, this wouldn't really be enough to be worth taking. Fire prevention as a skill is completely useless. Incoming fire alert, if you're using situational awareness, you really don't need incoming fire alert. They basically do the same thing. If you know that you're spotted, which is what situational awareness does, then you don't need to know you're being shot at. You know, it's time to look around and see if anyone's taking a shot at me. I almost missed the basics of survivability, and this just reduces the time that you suffer from fire or flooding, and the time to repair your things on their own without using your consumable. And quite frankly, in a cruiser, you just don't have enough hit points for this to be worth taking at the beginning. Now, if you find room for it in your build with your last points, it's going to increase your survivability if you by chance catch on fire and you just hit your repair earlier, for example, for a torpedo hit, but I don't see it saving your life. So it's non-critical. Last stand for cruiser is also non-critical, although it isn't as bad as trying to take this for a battleship. Last stand basically allows you to continue to move or turn if your engine or steering gears are incapacitated. Now, there have been a few times, very few times, where my steering gears or engines have been incapacitated, and that's led to me dying. So few, in fact, I would submit to you that as a cruiser captain, it's really not worth taking. And we continue to move on here. Again, Tier 3, we've got more torpedo skills that don't apply to us. We've got High Alert, which reduces the reload time of damage control party. Problem with this is that it doesn't reduce it enough to be really viable. You got to understand, we're talking about the repair here, and you're paying 3 points for this. Either Vigilance or Superintendent would be worth it. Now, I'm going to explain to you why I didn't go Vigilance with my USN cruiser, and it's pretty simple. Superintendent's going to give you an extra heal, so for most cruisers, you're constantly using your heal. You get hit, the amount that you heal back is tiny, but it's enough to make a difference, so you're constantly hitting it. So the more heals you have, the better, which is why Superintendent in a cruiser is pretty critical versus Vigilance. For the second, for Tier 4 skills, it's a tie between Demo Expert and AFT. Now, if you're going to go more for anti-aircraft, you're going to want to take Advanced Firing Training. This will increase the range of any guns, 139mm or under, that includes secondary batteries and anti-aircraft defenses. Now, I can tell you that it does work well. What I really would like to try is to combine these two skills, Advanced Firing Training and Manual Fire Control for AA Armament. Well, I'm going to have the points to do this, and one more point, I'm going to forego a level 5 skill to do this. This is me doing it. Do I suggest you doing it? Maybe, if you want to be really focused against aircraft, which is what I want my Des Moines to do when I get her. This would make a potent build. Now, if you're more focused on, let's say, dealing damage to enemy ships, you're going to want Demolition Expert, because there's a very good chance that there are going to be battleships you're going to be fighting that aren't going to give you broadside for your armor-piercing shells, and you're really going to want to use Demolition Expert to start fires and keep them burning as you go up the tiers. So we've got AFT, or Advanced Firing Training, which I would say would take first place priority for most cruisers, followed by Manual Fire Control or Demo Expert, depending really on what cruiser or what kind of cruiser you're building. When we get to the level 5 skills here, you'll see that Last Chance gives you a negative 30% reload time for all types of armament if your ship point is less than 10%. Look, if you're at 10% health and you don't have any torpedoes, you're probably going to die really soon. Last Chance isn't gonna help you do more damage. Not realistically speaking. It's probably a skill that 1% out of the time, 1% out of 1,000 battles, you'll actually find it useful. What's 1% out of 1,000? It's 10. That really isn't statistically significant, and it isn't worth five points. I've never taken this skill, and until they buff it further, I never will. Manual Fire Control for secondary armament. Unfortunately, American ships in general just don't have use for this, and cruisers are no exception. Your secondary guns have literally no range, so this skill just falls by the wayside for the USN cruisers. It equally is not as good for German or Japanese. They just don't have secondaries to deal with. So this is almost only a battleship skill, although there is a specific build which I will mention when I cover Germany's cruiser specifically, a specific ship that could use this build and actually could be kind of formidable. We move on to preventative maintenance. This decreases the incapacitation rate of your modules by 50%. I submit to you that it is not worth, yes, on a cruiser you start to lose your modules more often. There's no doubt of that. But again, how often have you been in battle where you've lost a turret? It doesn't happen to me every game. It's really, the thing that happens most often for me as a player of this game is I eat a torpedo, I catch on fire, or I get citadeled. Those three things. And more often than all those three things, I just take damage. Nothing really gets damaged or knocked out. So preventative maintenance, how really useful is it going to be when you're in your cruiser? Not very much. So again, a skill that just doesn't have the same value and doesn't provide the same value as Concealment Expert. Cruiser survivability is based on their ability to deal damage without being seen. And quite frankly, if I were going to go for a 5th level skill in the USN line, it would be Concealment Expert. I would just say, I'm going to maximize how how much I can shoot without being seen, how far away I can shoot without being seen. And with Concealment Expert, I believe you could almost stealth fire in a Baltimore. We're going to just double check real quick. Her concealment has her spotted at 11.3 base. With concealment, it would drop her down to maybe 10 kilometers, meaning with her range of 18.4 kilometers, she could stealth fire at about 16.6. So she'd have 2 kilometers of stealth fire range. It's really not terrible if you're running away. And certainly the fact that you're harder to detect means you can surprise opponents. It's so much more useful. Now, I didn't mention Survivability Expert. I'd like to cover it. For a cruiser, it's interesting. Personally, I don't think 4,000 extra hit points is worth it on a cruiser, just based on how much damage getting Citadel'd can do to you. 4,000 extra hit points at tier 10. We're talking tier 10. We're not even talking about pre-tier 10. Is basically a 1 AP shell from a tier 5 or tier 6 cruiser that Citadel's you. That's one shell. It means they really only need one more shell to kill you. It's not statistically significant. If we start to talk about battleships, all you're doing is giving them more XP. It is overrated for cruisers and extremely overrated for battleships. A lot of people are taking it now because they say, well, you can heal this damage. No matter what happens, fire, flooding, damage, you can heal it. That's true. That's true. But 4,000 hit points in the grand scheme of thing over the versatility of another skill, over a more offensive build. Let's be honest. This skill only really applies to destroyers that are going to engage other destroyers in combat. And if they are, they're going to need the extra hit points to dish out damage, come about, maybe take on 2 at once, and win if they don't have this skill. So cruisers just don't benefit from this skill. It's not enough to make it viable. When we look at the only other skill that's not aircraft related, Jack of all trades with a minus 15% reload time to all your consumables. Again, not enough bang for your buck here. The only reason I would consider taking this is your repair would cool down faster, and your heal, you get a battleship heal ability. Heal over time would be available more quickly, and in a cruiser, having that heal over time more quickly is kind of a good thing because there's a very good chance you're going to take damage. Battleships love to feed on cruisers, so yeah, no, honestly, concealment is the best thing. Now let's talk about why I built the Baltimore this way. Really simply, anti-AA build, so basic firing training and advanced firing training. Like I said, gonna forego Demo Expert. It was what I was going to take. I'm gonna go with manual fire control for AA armament. I've got expert marksman for that little extra bit of turning on the main batteries. This is important. Again, you want to track targets as quickly as possible while the main batteries on USN cruisers don't turn all that slowly. The last thing I want to do is have a destroyer at 2 kilometers range that I'm unable to shoot at because my turrets won't turn. So I'd have to maneuver, kill myself on his torpedoes to kill him. Although, albeit at that range, I'm probably dead anyway. But, I don't like situations. I like being in control of my situation. And this helps. Superintendent for the extra heal. I wouldn't mind taking Vigilance. The only issue is as much healing as I can pour on this ship, I'm going to get hit. It's a USN cruiser. They're so easy to Citadel. It's mind-boggling how weak these ships are. So Superintendent really, really helps in that regard. And probably going to go with manual fire control for AA armament and maybe round it out if I have a point. I think I'm going to have 2 or 3 points left. Round it out with maybe Vigilance or a faster repair party. So that's my build on USN. It's going to be very similar for the Des Moines. It might change. I might feel like a more aggressive Demo Expert build. What I'll end up doing in that case is I'll just roll another captain for the Des Moines and train him on the Arkansas beta until he's ready. Because the reality is I foresee there being a need to have captains in reserve for different playstyles on ships. And that's why I'm making this video, just for you to maybe see ways you can play around with the skills that are similar in value to achieve different ends. Onwards, let's take a look at Japanese cruisers. Let's go over to the Zhao. Let's check out the captain over here. Now we got Masao Sato. Very honorable, my friend. And here you're going to see a noticeable lack of anti-aircraft skills. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what's going on here? Well, the IGN flavor isn't about shooting down aircraft. I'm not saying you can't build an AA build, Zao. No, go ahead, be my guest. And you know what? You're going to be effective-ish. But I really feel that the Zao shines and excels in a stealth build designed to murder ships that are unaware of her existence. And for that reason, I've taken situational awareness, expert marksman, again for the faster turret turn rate, superintendent for more healing, demolition expert for more fires, very important for Japanese cruisers. You want to start as many fires as you can. It adds up. You know, the Zao's AP is quite powerful, but really fires are where it's at for the ship. And finally, concealment. And what concealment will let me do is stay cloaked. And stay cloaked at long ranges. You know, I'll be shooting anything over 16 kilometers. They won't see me. And I'll be still shooting at them, and I'll see them. And quite often, I can just sit out there, continue firing, lighting a battleship on fire over and over again, and he can't retaliate. It's really quite an effective tactic. You would be surprised how many times the Zao just doesn't have to deal with aircraft. And when those aircraft come, that her base AA is oftentimes powerful enough to deflect or blunt the attack. And you can even run the anti-aircraft ability along with this, the consumable, to maximize your AA ability. Although personally I run hydroacoustic right now during patch 5.3 due to dearth of destroyers out there. They're everywhere, and really cruisers don't have much of a counter. This hydroacoustic skill needs a buff, needs a major buff for it to be true counter against destroyers. Right now it's just a band-aid. It's not working well. So this is my Japanese destroyer, or rather captain skills for the cruiser. I don't feel like there are any substitutions here I'd make. They're just not good at pure anti-aircraft roles. Their secondaries on the secondaries on the Zao aren't good enough to warrant having a secondary build. Survivability in the Zao is questionable at best. Having faster torpedoes in the Zao would mean I wouldn't hit anything. So it's and having torpedoes that reload faster, not really that useful. It takes them a minute and 45 seconds before my torpedoes are loaded anyway. So it's just not enough to be viable. The only thing I would consider adding to this build right now would be vigilance or some survivability in the form of repair, reduced fire duration, or increased repair or decreased repair party consumable cooldown. So that would be the Japanese cruiser for now. Let's go take a look at the Hindenburger. The Hindenburger. And I'll explain my philosophy here. Now, the Hindenburger captain isn't retrained yet. That's why everything's in orange. As you can see, though, things look really similar. This captain's actually 17 points. Quite the skilled captain. I'm going to have, I think 2 more points before I won't have any more points I can get. And what we're looking at here is a fairly standard build, in my opinion. I've got basic firing training, advanced firing training. This is again for anti-aircraft control. I've got expert marksman, again for faster turret traverse. I've got situation awareness, which means I can see any target that's hunting me. I have superintendent for the increased heal ability, and even hydroacoustic, because I use hydroacoustic quite a bit, so superintendent is good for that. And then, of course, concealment. Now, right now, concealment's effect is at 50% effectiveness. So I'm not getting the full effect of concealment, but it does bring down the Hindenburger's concealment down to 13.1, and she can start firing at her maximum range and not be seen till about 17 kilometers with this build. It's absolutely phenomenal, because your AP shells can citadel Amagis at that range due to plunging fire. You can get crazy amounts of damage, and this thing is super accurate. So this is the kind of build I'd recommend. Look, her HE shells aren't very powerful, but if you want more fires, you can go ahead and get Demo Expert. I don't recommend it on German cruisers. I don't think it's worth it. You very rarely need to fall back on her HE shells. Most of your damage will be derived by using armor-piercing shells on targets. I wouldn't substitute any other skills, and once I have enough points, the only change I think, or the only thing I'm going to add, is a simple high alert so that my repair party is off of cooldown sooner. So those really, everything I've covered here is what in the current meta of 0.5.3 I think really makes the best combination for you in your cruiser. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, or ideas, feel free to leave them here. I'll go ahead and respond to them as soon as I'm able. It was a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day. Derek Slide out.